you wouldn't mind, Harry, take us back to your experiences with the Liberation. What was your role and what were you kind of feeling as that was happening?
Locally, my experience there was this was about the last week of the war, around the end of April. About the time Hitler died, we wanted to go to his funeral, but they wouldn't let us go. Anyway, it's probably better we didn't. Well, anyway, we were headed north. We were going up to the town of Schwerin. We were to go up and meet with the British. We couldn't figure out why. Nobody would tell us, why do we have to go up there to help the British? Well, about 2 years after the war, we found out that the reason they sent us up there was to have a show of force because the Russians were coming in from the east, the British were coming in from the west, we were coming in from the south, so we had to go up and send just some troops to show the Russians that we were there. And that was the whole purpose. So the war ended while we were there in the town of Schwerin. It's right on the Baltic. And but on the way up the road going to it, we crossed the Elbe River. The Elbe River was the dividing line between the Russian and the American and British zones, which were set up for occupation. And so we're headed up that way with the 82nd Airborne and the 8th Infantry Division interspersed. And so when we got to the town of Ludwigslust, they had the 82nd Airborne drop off and go over to Ludwigslust, where they found Wöbbelin. And so they, 82nd had no heavy equipment. They were strictly light infantry. And we were assigned to them as an attached tank battalion so that they would have some gun support. So they knew we had tanks, they knew we had half-tracks, so they asked us if we could divert a couple, maybe a tank and a half-track or if something like that over to help them break down the fences at the concentration camp. So, well, we did. A tank and a half-track, and we wanted to go over and see what was going on. We had heard about the camps, but we knew nothing about them. I mean, well, we heard about them back, during the Bulge at least, Battle of the Bulge. And, we didn't have any news anyway. We couldn't get newspapers unless they were a month old. We couldn't get any radio with civilian news on it, All we could get was the military stuff. Of course, being there, I was riding in a half-track at that time. I was not driving, so all I had to do was make sure I didn't get hit by some of these wires that they were breaking through. Because, of course, when they snapped, they flew back, and if you were in the way, you'd get cut up pretty bad. So what I saw is the people and how they were living. Well, how they weren't living, but how they were still alive. And I felt so sorry for them. Nothing I could do. I was there really illegally because we were told to go in and help them and get out of there. As a matter of fact, after we broke down a few fences, the battalion commander came on the radio and he said, "Where are you guys and why aren't you on the road?" And so, well, we helped the 82nd Airborne break down some fences at this camp up here. And he said, "Well, get back on the road. We got to get up there to help the British. Our orders from First Army, so we got to get up there." So I said, "Okay, we'll get up there as soon as we can." After we got to our occupation areas, I got a chance to go to Dachau. And Dachau was down just north of Munich, was where I was stationed at the time. And so I decided to go down and look at it. Now, the Nuremberg trials for the bigwigs of the Nazi Party was over.
Okay.
It had ended in 46, I believe, early 46. And so they set up another war crimes trial at Dachau. So anyway, I got there. I walked through the main gate and I turned left and there was a dog pens there, pretty wide dog pens, well, as wide as this, and about 7 feet tall. They kept these great big German police dogs in there, and of course they'd use those against the prisoners for whatever, who knows. And you could tell the GIs when they got in there, the dogs were probably growling and barking at them, and they shot them down with, you could tell they were 45s, they were Tommy guns. And so I passed that by, and after I saw that, I thought, thank God we could have killed those dogs. But then I walked over to the crematorium, and as I recall, Dachau had 4 ovens in this brick building. And the floor of this crematorium had bricks about this big square, and they had a light colored gray grout between them. And I remember one door was open, and I looked in, and still part of a body was in there. It was sheared, well, black, as black as this curtain here, and you could see an arm, a whole arm and part of the chest bones. And I went around and back, and they had scrapings that they had scraped the bodies out, and there was a pile of ashes about this high, and it was the same, and about this big around, and it was the same color as the stuff that was between those bricks, and I broke down. I still do, but what it was I said, my God, look at the number of bodies I walked over. Just a lot of bricks. And it got to me. I don't know, maybe I'm different than a lot of people, but I don't know, but that's the thing that really got to me more than anything else.